it's like looking down a hallway. It's kind of the vision. I'll say this though, the image is clear. It is very clear.
I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today because this is the Fatshark Attitude V4 Special Edition, and ain't nobody else on YouTube reviewed it yet, at least not right this minute. The Attitude V4 is the latest evolution of Fatshark's Attitude line of goggles. The anniversary edition means that you get this custom red faceplate with these special graphics on it. But other than that, it's an Attitude goggle. Attitude is Fatshark's more budget-oriented line, with the Dominators being the more performance-oriented line. So you're going to see this come in a little bit cheaper and also have not quite as impressive a feature set. It's got a 640 by 480 VGA resolution screen, just like all the other Attitudes, and the short version is that my opinion is that's the minimum resolution you want for standard definition cameras, but it is an acceptable resolution. I really don't think there's much point in going down to a goggle with like a half VGA resolution, like I think the teleporters have either half or quarter VGA, however it breaks down. But 640 by 480 is sufficient, because if you look at the resolution of like an NTSC or PAL camera feed, it's not actually, that's pretty close to 640 by 480. So the extra resolution going up to an 800 by 600 screen, it's something, but it's not a massive amount. The field of view on this goggle is 32 degrees, and if you know what that means, good for you, and if you don't know what that means, I'll tell you a little later in the video. The goggle has adjustable IPD, that's interpupillary distance. That's how wide your eyes are set together. It's the same IPD adjustment as all the other Fatshark goggles. I believe it's like 59 millimeters at the minimum. If you have very narrow set eyes, you may find that that is not enough for you. And many people who try to use Fatshark goggles, well, I shouldn't say many people, but some people who use Fatshark goggles find that their eyes are too narrow and they simply can't get both screens to be clear, even at the narrowest setting. I always run my Fatshark goggles at the very narrowest setting, and it's just barely. If I could get like 2 more millimeters, I would take it, but it's acceptable if you have very narrow set eyes, and you can certainly just go to your optician and ask them what your pupillary distance is, and then their pupillary distance is the distance from the center to the pupil, and they'll never have heard of the interpupillary distance, which, as near as I can tell, is just a term that Fatshark made up. But basically, you take your 2 pupillary distances and you add them up, and that's what your and if that is less than 59 millimeters, you may not do well with really any Fatshark goggles, frankly. Came with a Spironet antenna. That's more than enough. Spironet's not bad. It's not the tippy top line of antennas as they go, but it's acceptable and maybe even decent. I don't know. I haven't tested it. It even came with a right angle adapter, so that's super nice. You don't have to have it curved. It doesn't have diversity. Some of you are looking at it going, where's diversity? Now, is that a big deal or isn't it a big deal? That depends a lot on what you do. If you look at many types of flying we do, like racing or close-in freestyle, a lot of times you'll do fine with no diversity, and this is a budget-oriented goggle without diversity. Many times, if you look at racers or freestyle pilots, what are they doing with their heads when they're flying anyway? They're staring at the ground, so their patch antenna is really wasted anyway. That being said, obviously diversity is a nice feature to have, and it's going to be a deal breaker for some people in some circumstances. It comes with the standard Fatshark battery. Yeah, with a little pushy button here to tell you what the state of charge is. And in case you hadn't heard, this is not the best battery in the world. Well, I don't know about this one specifically, but I'm going to guess it's the same battery that comes with all the other goggles. It doesn't have huge capacity, and some people report that it puffs or it doesn't last long. Many people who have this battery end up replacing it with a home-built 18650 pack. You can find videos about that out there. So nothing to write home about, but it's the same battery you get with all the other Fatsharks, and it'll certainly get you into the field. The really exciting thing that this goggle has, and some would accuse me of burying the lead here, is this OLED display. Let me give you a closer look at that. So here we are looking at the current channel, which is Fatshark 3 5780, and if I push this button one time, it will begin scanning, and it will find the channel with the strongest signal. Now you notice it's scanning within the Fatshark band. If you have a transmitter turned on, it will lock onto that transmitter and show you the RSSI for that transmitter. I do not have a transmitter turned on at this exact minute, but there you go. It locks on to the strongest one. Of course, you can select manually just by using the up-down button on the top of the goggle, just like you always have been able to. And if you want to change bands, what you do is you hold that button down, and we'll go into a scanning mode, and you can press the button to change to race band, band A, and band E. And Fatshark again. I'll hold it down again to select the band. Now this is massive. This is the first time you've been able to change bands on a Fatshark goggle without digging around in the goggle and flipping a dip switch. So that's kind of a big deal. So you can see here that just like the Attitude V3, you would have to mod the goggle a little bit to get a diversity module like a LaForge or a True D in there. It just, the top here would have to be shaved away. Presumably the pinout is the same as it always has been, but just like the Attitude V3, you're not going to be able to get a diversity module in here if you were to desire to do that without modding the goggle. And I understand why you would do that. At the same time, it'd kind of be a shame. It's a really nice looking goggle. All right, Nathan. What do you normally fly? What goggles do you normally fly?
Normally flying the Fatshark HD3s.
HD3s, okay. These are the Attitude V4 Anniversary Edition. It's the first time you've held them. What are your initial thoughts?
They look nice.
Yeah?
Very nice.
You like the graphics?
I do like the graphics. Clear pictures, definitely smaller field of view than these two.
Wow. This propellers have already eaten up a power line. So they've already.
How are they better than the Attitude V3s?
The picture is just a lot clearer.
Yeah?
So far, everyone has.
The resolution is the same, so I wonder what the difference
I don't
is.
know what the difference is, but
Maybe the optics.
They got their on DVR now.
So,
all right.
so you got the Dom V3s.
I had the Attitude V3.
You had the Attitude
Then went to
V3s.
the SEs.
Yeah.
And now the HD3s.
Oh, so you've had them all. No, turn them down.
Oh, so you got HD3s now?
Yeah.
So how do you think it stacks up then? You're the perfect guy to ask.
I would say I would almost say the picture is clearer than the SE. The SE is a little grainy.
That's because it's the same resolution, but it's a 50-degree field of view.
Right, it's just more grainy. It's the best way I can
You got the
describe
same number of pixels spread thinner.
Right. They're definitely clearer than the V3s, the Attitude V3s.
Uh-huh.
I don't think they're quite as good as the HD3s.
You think the HD3 is better?
HD3 is probably better.
And the
But
HD3
for $350. But other than that, I like them.
Well, yeah. So it's not a surprise
I
that
would
for
recommend them at the beginning.
yeah, it's not a surprise that for $500 the HD3 is better, but
Right,
that's
right.
solid. All right. So what goggles do you fly with now?
Right now, I got the HD2s
Okay.
with the standard default diversity
The
mode.
Next Wave module.
Yeah, the Next Wave module.
Have you flown any other goggles?
No,
before that?
actually.
You went
the-
straight to the HD2s.
Oh gosh, no. Well, as far as goggles, yeah, but I did fly the Quantum V2s.
Oh, okay.
days ago. So I came from the screen in front of me to goggles, and I've gotten used to goggles now.
How was that experience?
The transition was a little weird. I was used to kind of sitting in my personal movie theater with the Quantum V2s, and over time, I got used to kind of the goggles way of viewing, and I have to throw in the diopters and all that jazz. But after that, I was pretty good.
Do you like the goggles? You obviously kept using the goggles.
I kept using the goggles.
Why do you like the goggles better today?
I like the goggles. Honestly, I'd say the two biggest things would be portability. Like the fact that I can throw everything I need to in a backpack and just go is not to be undersold. And then I think the second biggest reason is the quality of the image I'm getting is a little better than that of the original Quantum. Like
Really?
I could control a lot of the aspects of the screen, but my screen was just some ad hoc janky
It's
thing.
better.
and
It's a better screen. Than
It's a
you
better
had.
screen.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, here's the Attitude V4s.
All right.
And you're gonna give. How do they feel? What do you think? How do you think they feel compared to your HD2s?
First impressions are nice. I do like the matte black finish, and
I
I do
noticed
like
that
the color
too.
scheme. Like I really like. I
And
like
it
the
feels.
colors.
It feels different, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels like a little softer, like a softer plastic or a softer finish on it. I mean, my fingerprints are probably going to get all grubby on it, but I do like it. So
Yeah, I almost like that better. The HDs, the Dominators have this sort of hard, shiny. And
yeah,
that's almost
the
like
shiny,
satiny.
Yeah, the shiny plastic, and I mean, you know what you're getting and you like them, but it does feel like you're just buying some hard plastic. And
All right.
But yeah.
All right, give them a go.
Okay.
You should already be on your channel.
Okay. I hope I can see because I cannot see what. Oh, whoa. Okay. All right.
What do you see?
Static.
Oh. What do you see? Is your copter on?
I thought I turned it on. Hold on.
How's that now?
Oh man, whoa, okay. I realize I'm a spoiled child.
Why?
That field of view is something to get used to.
Tell me about it.
So I'm coming from HD2s, which I thought the field of view would be kind of similar or whatnot, but it is a little further away from my head. It reminds me of my Quantums, actually. That's what I'm kind of reminded of.
How's it remind you of the Quantums?
In the sense that I feel a certain amount of distance. Sure, the Quantum screen was large, but I was used to always looking down a tunnel to view it.
I got you.
And this is kind of that same sort of thing. I don't know about immersion, but I do recognize that I'm staring at a screen now. I'm a person with wide eyes, and I can tell that even the default IPDs are not going to help me.
Does the IPD work on the HD2s for you? Is it wide enough?
It has to be maxed out, but yeah, it fits well. And I think if I move these just a little bit, I don't know.
So this is, I'll check the specs, but I think it's got the same specs. I'll have to double check that. But maybe practically speaking, it doesn't quite go as wide.
I still have a switch on my.
Here we go.
Yeah,
Whoa. So kidding. It's like looking down a hallway. It's kind of the vision. I'll say this though, the image is clear. It is very clear. I don't know. It's kind of hard. I'm getting a weird vibe about it. I can't get over how clear it is for an Attitude, because I know that the HD2s, that's kind of the bigger selling point, is their clarity.
They have the 800 by 600 screen. This is 640 by 480.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
I really like it. How much? So these are considered I think it's an introduction or even as an upgrade. These are great.
So these are $350.
These are $350?
$350 for these.
Okay.
And they come with the receiver.
Oh, okay.
So compared to the Attitude V3, which was I think $300 but didn't come with the receiver.
Didn't come with the receiver. Or even the HD2s, which also didn't come with the receiver.
Right.
To buy them.
HD2s they were $450 with no receiver.
With no receiver. And I think this is a great deal. I think it's a great deal. So, yeah.
Awesome. Now let's take a look at how the specs of the Attitude V4 stack up against the other goggles in Fatshark's lineup. I've pulled the specs of the goggles that Fatshark is currently selling and a couple of other goggles that have been discontinued. I've marked those with a D here, just that I wanted to include for comparison's sake. I've also extracted only a few of the most relevant specifications, notably the field of view, the resolution, and the price. I really want to emphasize to you that there are many other things that differentiate these goggles, like glass versus plastic optics. Some of the goggles have HDMI input for high def feeds, like if you're using a Connex Pro site. Others don't. Most of them have a DVR, but the Attitude V3 doesn't have a DVR, I think, and so on and so on. So I really want you to understand that this is not the be-all, end-all of the comparison of these things. But I think if we look at it, we can gain some insights into how these goggles compare. And the first thing we want to look at is the field of view. In case it's not obvious to you, the field of view basically determines how big the screen is going to look inside the goggle when you've got them on your face. And what I've got over here is a graphic from Fatshark's website showing what the screens look like in various goggles. So you can see that the HD2 with the 50-degree field of view looks very big, and the Attitude V3 here with a 32-degree field of view looks much smaller. It doesn't look like there's that much difference between these two here looking at the screen, but I gotta tell you, when you've got the goggles on your face, the difference between the HD2 and the Attitude is pretty big. The HD2, you have to really kind of almost move your eyes around if you want to see both sides of the screen. That can be a good thing or a bad thing. It's a good thing because it's very immersive. All you see when you've got those goggles on is your video feed. Whereas when you put the Attitude V3s on, you see it looks like the image is kind of floating in black space out in front of you, like you're at a drive-in movie theater. Remember those? And it's just not as immersive to see that black around the edges of the screen. On the other hand, you can see the entire screen of the Attitude V3 without moving your eyes at all. You can really read your OSD and whatever. And some people find that to be an advantage, especially racers seem to like a narrower field of view because they can see the entire screen at once without moving their eyes, and they can line up turns and so forth very precisely. I think that the narrower field of view might have some advantage for freestyle as well, because if you've got a branch that's sort of coming at you from the side of the screen, you may see it sooner with a narrower field of view because there is no peripheral vision with the Attitude V3s. The peripheral vision is just blackness. Okay, whereas with the HD2s, the branch could kind of come in from the peripheral vision and you might not notice it at first. On the other hand, man, you put those HD2s on and you're just there. You're just in the copter. That's it. And the HD2s, when I first got them, I went from Attitude V2s to HD2s, and it took a little bit to get used to it, but once I got used to it, man. The Attitude V4, which is the goggle we're looking at today, it has a 32-degree field of view, which is pretty much the same as all the Attitudes. I think the Attitude V2 had a 35-degree field of view, but it's going to be a small screen. And that's something that you're just going to have to live with in the Fatshark line if you want the lower end goggles. The resolution of the Attitudes is 640 by 480, and you basically only got two choices here: 800 by 600, which is high resolution, and 640 by 480, which is low resolution. The exception to that is the Dominator V3, which has a 16:9 screen. Now, I've got the Dominator V3 on here because it's still sold by Fatshark, but I have to tell you, I'm not a fan of the 16:9 screen, and the reason for that is that all of the cameras we're using are 4:3 cameras. Well, that's not entirely true. You can get 16:9 versions of the Runcam Eagle, and the Foxeer Monster, I think, is 16:9, but I'm just not sold on it. Because for one thing, the widescreen cameras I've seen, they don't have a wider angle. They just chop the top off the image, so you see just as much. Obviously, you can change the lens out, right? But what I've seen is that you see the same thing with a 4:3 image. You just see more at the top and bottom. And so I don't think there's a compelling case for 16:9 for FPV. 16:9 is great for watching movies. It's not great for FPV. So the Dominator V3s with their 16:9 screen, I don't find them very appealing, but here they are. Everything else, 640 by 480, like I said back when I was reviewing the goggles, I feel like that's an adequate resolution. 800 by 600 is better, but the real advantage of 800 by 600 is if you intend to do high-def stuff like, well, Connex ProSight and pretty much nothing else. So all in all, how does this fall out? Well, today, if you want the quote-unquote the best Fatshark goggle you can get, it's clearly the Dominator HD3. It's got the high-resolution screen. It has less field of view than the HD2, and frankly, I wonder what Fatshark is going to do to serve people who want the higher field of view of the HD2. It may be an aftermarket for the HD2, people hanging on. I may be hanging on to mine. I kind of like that field of view. But right now, if you want the top Fatshark goggle, obviously it's the HD3. And it has many features that I haven't talked about, like the ability to do 3D, if that's what you're into. I've sort of ignored those features because I just feel like for my audience at least, those features aren't what you're really interested in. You're just using these as, screens on your face to fly off of, and that's mostly it. Coming down in price, we can see that the Dominator V3 price is the same as the Attitude V4. And the Dominator V3 does have some features, like, for example, it does have an HDMI input. It has some features of the higher end at the lower end price point, but you have got the 800 by 480 screen. Now, I don't like the 16:9 screen, but if you were looking at the Attitude V4, you might think about the Dominator V3 instead, because you got the same 480 lines of vertical resolution. You just have 800 lines of, the other way around, 480 lines of horizontal resolution. You just have 800 lines. You have a wider screen. You're going to get the stretched image. Many people say that the stretched image, they get used to it. They don't really notice. And maybe you would like, the one thing that the Dominator V3 really has over the Attitude V4 is that it'll take an aftermarket module without modification, if that's what you're into doing. Of course, the Attitude V4 has the Fatshark module, so the price of the Dominator V3 is $350, but it's really $450 because you're going to buy a LaForge or a Trudy, or maybe it's $400 if you put a real ACC in there, right? But it's not really price comparable to the Attitude V4 when the V4 comes with a half-decent module for the same price. But I know what many of you are thinking. That's how the Fatshark goggles stack up against each other. But how do they stack up against the Aomway Commander or the SkyZone Sky02 or whatever that goggle is that Stu from UAV Futures just reviewed and raved about? And again, setting aside all the other features like, for example, the SkyZone Sky02 and the Aomway Commander have diversity. None of the Fatshark goggles have diversity until you spend $100 on an aftermarket module. And you look at other features like et cetera, it's less clear cut, and I think that you have to ask yourself how much you want to pay for the Fatshark name. If you look at what the pros are running at any big race or at all the top FPV pilots, they're all running Fatsharks. And I kind of find myself wondering why. Is it hype train? Is it just, fashion? Everybody that's what they run and everybody's afraid to show up and be the one guy with the no-name goggles? Or are Fatsharks really better in some way that isn't captured by the spec sheet? Because if you look at the spec sheets, the Aomway Commander, the SkyZone Sky02 deliver more at a lower price than the Fatsharks. And I don't have an answer for you on that. I have some Aomway Commanders on the way. They've been on back order for a month. If you can't get them, I can't get them either. I would like to try some of these goggles out and tell you what I think of them and how they compare to Fatsharks. If you look at those goggles that Stu from UAV Futures reviewed, he raved about them, but I couldn't help but notice he said they were his new backup goggles. He didn't say they were replacing his Fatsharks. So, yeah. I want to acknowledge that there's these other goggles out there with really good specs and on paper very good value for money, but I also want to sort of raise the question mark. Why is it that so many people who could choose whatever goggle they want aren't running those goggles? And to those of you who say, oh, it's because they're sponsored. Fatshark just gives them goggles. No, they don't. I assure you. I mean, there's people out there who get free goggles. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. But all the people that you know who are flying Fatshark goggles, they didn't get them for free. Not all of them. So I didn't get mine. This set I did, but every other set I've owned until today, no, I bought them. And so did a lot of those other guys. So that is going to bring us to the end of my review of the Fatshark Attitude V4 Anniversary Edition or not, Fatshark's new goggle. The bottom line is, if you want a budget Fatshark goggle today, you kind of have two choices. It's the V4 for $350. It's the Dominator V3 plus a module for $350 plus whatever the module is, or about $300 for the Attitude V3. Although I gotta tell you, I'm not sure that one is really competitive. Just if you're gonna buy the Attitude V3 for $300, spring $50 more and get this one. I think this one's a much better goggle all around. Well, at this point, I've given you the information you need to know, and you can hopefully decide for yourself. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions, and as always, happy flying.